Chidanandji, now you can start. Please unmute and start.
Yeah. Namaste and good evening, friends. Why do we call thought a material process? What do we mean by a material process? Material is something that goes with matter. In Indian philosophy, from time immemorial, they have discussed a certain division between spirit and matter. Therefore, material process to belong to the camp of matter is something related to matter. In the Chandogya Upanishad of Samaveda, the father Uddalaka asked the son Shvetaketu not to eat for 15 days. Just live on water. The obedient son Shvetaketu follows the instruction, and at the end of the 15 days, the son is pretty weak. But what is interesting is the father says to the son, "You were reciting many Veda mantras so well before. Can you recite some of those mantras now?" And Shvetaketu is at a loss. He tries, but is unable to remember and recite. And Shvetaketu says, "I'm so sorry, father. I'm not able to think of those Veda mantras, which I knew very well, true enough." Uddalaka smiles. "That's because you did not eat. Now have hearty meals for a day or two. Come back again to me." And Shvetaketu comes back after taking adequate food for 1 or 2 days. And the father, in this simple demonstrative experiment, says again to the son, "Now recite those mantras." And lo, the son goes into all those recitations with all fluency, no difficulty. Then comes an interesting statement. The father says, "Look, Shvetaketu, as made evident in this little experiment we conducted, the mind has much to do with the food that we eat. Let me tell you, O son, the food that we eat divides into 3 parts. The subtlest part, Sukshmatamam, Anutamam, becomes the mind, thinking, thought. The middle part becomes the bones and flesh and fat and all those. And the grossest part is excreted out." Simple words, not much of details like modern science would provide. But whatever is said over there is very thought-provoking. Does our thinking depend on food? And if it does, food is matter. Food is material. And we take that material in and it nourishes thinking. Thought, as per modern neuroscience, is a phenomenon in the brain where there are some electrochemical processes going on. Call it matter, call it energy. Today we have physics saying the two are related. What is more, the two are interchangeable. E equals mc square gives the equation for energy to matter or matter to energy. So even if it is passing of energy from one neuron to another, even if it's a movement of energy in the brain, it is material. The significance of this statement in the teachings that thought is a material process is immense. You and I are quite enamored by what thought has achieved in the world, and computers or nowadays our mobile devices, which we call smartphones, are simply terrific. They say with the advent of 5G bandwidth or frequency range, and with the advent of artificial intelligence, the terrific combination of 5G and artificial intelligence is going to change human life beyond our imagination. We are more afraid of it than excited about it. But as related to this evening's topic, this advancement of science and technology, making computers or mobile phones and other devices very powerful, doesn't really mean that they have true intelligence. It's artificial intelligence. For computer is matter. Laptops, mobile phones, and all those electronic devices are matter. Then you program them. And the program, however wonderful it may be, is what has come from human mind. Therefore, the programs, the computer programs, the software, in a manner of saying, is one notch below human mind. There's an interesting similarity between how computers work and how our human mind works. As early as 1980 or 81, when I was studying electronics and communication at IIT Madras, some of my best friends sharing the same hostel in the campus were headlong into what was called neural networks in computer science. I did not get into that, but I asked a friend of mine, hey, Raman, what is this neural networks you are studying? And Raman explained to me, you know, this neural network is a branch of computer science where we try to simulate, we try to do things very similar to how the human brain works. We study human brain, for which neurologists help us, and the way the human brain works, we want to pick from there and design computer networks. Wow, that's interesting. Computers became smarter and smarter, following examples set by the very advanced human brain. Now, the point is, computers are material. The functioning of the brain also is material. Thought is a phenomenon in human brain. Therefore, it is a material process. You may ask whether it's a material process or a sentient process. In Indian languages like Sanskrit, the words are jada and chetana. So whether thought is jada, inert, or chetana, conscious, sentient, full of life, who cares? As long as thought comes handy for us to solve problems, to get going with life, someone may say. We would say, are you really able to get going in life? Are you really able to solve your problems? You may be able to solve certain mechanical problems, but your problems of anxiety, of insecurity, of various forms of feeling low, feeling misplaced, various thoughts of having become a failure in life, anxiety about what could happen 5 years from now, comparison, competition, and a whole lot of all those things. Has thought helped you resolve them? Hasn't thought actually made matters more complicated? Isn't thought at the very root of your endless insecurity, your judgmentalism? You call A or B not worthy, you call P or Q enviable, and putting labels on others and putting labels on yourself, you suffer and you don't know what life is all about. This tremendous confusion about what life is fundamentally is the great gift of thought. So don't say thought has been very helpful. Thought has been actually the culprit of great amount of mess in human life. Therefore, it is one more reason for us to call thought a material process. Let me introduce another well-known word at this juncture. When you call thought a material process, what is meant is it has no intelligence. One of Krishnaji's books is rightly titled Limits of Thought. And Krishnaji, all through his great work over the decades, highlighted what is again a title of another of his books. He didn't give any title. It is we folks who later, depending on what he highlighted in his talks, gave a title to the compilation. He highlighted Awakening of Intelligence. You awake intelligence or awaken intelligence from where? From amidst thought? No way. It is not in thought, in or through thought, or in the domain of thought that you can extract intelligence. I would rather visualize intelligence as belonging somewhere, and thought is to be informed by intelligence. Perhaps it would not be wrong to say, when thought sits quietly, intelligence wakes up. Thought makes us weak. Thought makes us enfeebled. Thought actually exhausts us when there is no operation of thought. In silence, not the silence of sleep, but in the silence of certain insightfulness, a certain intelligence wakes up in us. So why do we call thought a material process? Thought actually makes us go closer to matter, whereas something else makes us get closer to true intelligence. We are not concerned so much about creating more machines. We have had enough of them. This morning, let me tell you, a young man came to me, giving my iPhone back to me. For 24 hours, I had given my iPhone to him because it needed an upgradation. The operating system, as you call it, was iOS 10, and I needed iOS 15 in order to install some apps. And he took many hours, though he is an expert in Apple phones. He worked very hard. And when he came and brought me the iPhone, which he had taken yesterday at 11 a.m., Today at 11 a.m., he returned to me here in Vasant Vihar, the headquarters of KFI. I profusely thanked him. I said, I am so happy to meet somebody like you who did all this because several others had failed. But you know what he said to me? Thank you, Swamiji, but I am fed up of my profession. I said, why? He said, I am all the time handling these mobiles, sitting before computers. My 7-year-old son also is all the time wishing to play video games, watch YouTube videos. My wife and I somehow try to send our boy outdoor, play games, meet friends. For heaven's sake, do not be with these gadgets. These gadgets have driven us nuts. Many times my eyes are so pained. Like you, many people praise me for my skill, for my knowledge of these Apple phones. Yes, I do know a lot of things, but I am not proud of my profession. I'm so tired. So do you want to produce more and more machines with AI, with 5G, and with 100 other things? They only make us weak. Therefore, someone said the tragedy of human civilization is smarter machines and more idiotic humanity. More idiotic humanity. A small number, of course, study how to make things, and science and technology are kept growing, advancing, but larger percentage of humanity is driven towards really stupid ways of behavior. So that is another topic altogether, what machines have done to humanity. But we must concern ourselves with whether our life should be like machines. Do we want to become like machines? Do you want to become more mechanical? If you if you invest more and more in thought, what is thought here, by the way? Thought and the self go together. Let me make it clear. Thought, self, time. Krishna ji has said in a very, you know, elegant manner. Thought, self, and time are one. So we are not talking of functional thinking. We are not talking of thoughts about what is the highest mountain in the world, which is the longest river in the world, what is the capital of Bangladesh, who is presently heading Ukraine as it is attacked by Russia. Facts and figures and knowledge in the realm of objective world, we are not talking of that. Thought is same as the self. I am lagging behind. I better catch up and proceed ahead. I better get better of others. I better protect my image. I have really a lot to do. Oh my God. In this way, when we are concerned with I, me, and my, which has lots of details, right? That is called thought. And this thought about the self, thought itself is the self, we said, which necessarily brings psychological time in that very gamut. They are together, you know, to use a word from Indian philosophy, permit me, thought, self, and time are Maya at play. Maya is the word we have been using in Indian philosophy for something that deludes us, confuses us, and finally makes us suffer. What is Maya? Thought is Maya. Self is Maya. Time is Maya. And these three, thought, self, and Maya, thought, self, and time, are a material process because they are the product of conditioning. They are the product of what happens in us when we are inattentive, when we do not notice things carefully. We just imitate somebody, we just mimic somebody, we just take somebody as role model. Somebody feeds into us how we should be, what we should be. Somebody tells us, you are not okay, you be like me, you do as I say, and we follow them. Ah, if we thus follow anybody blindly, or if we expect somebody to follow us, that is so unintelligent. Rather than following anyone, rather than anyone following us, is it possible that you and I, like the group that has gathered this evening at the online event of the Indore Krishnamurti group, all of us, suppose, are not here to follow each other, but all of us want to rise in our watchfulness. Can we examine things right now, at this moment? Can we be aware of what thought is doing? If we get aware, alert, attentive, intelligence is in that attention, in that awareness. And that intelligence, which is in awareness or attention, can make a difference to thought. In what way? Thought, which left to itself is a material process, can behave properly. It finds its place. After all, it's a tool. After all, it is, as the story went, Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein was a scientist. He made some, robot of some kind. And then that became so powerful, it went after Frankenstein. He had to run for life. Like in Indian stories, Shiva gave the boon to a certain demon. Whatever you touch will turn to ash. And that demon, who came to be known later as Bhasmasura, wanted to place his hand on Shiva only. And in what is regarded as a Leela, a sport, Shiva starts running. I don't have to tell you Puranic stories here. So, if we invest and trust thought, that will be like giving a demon the boon that whatever you touch will turn to ash. And that demon will chase us then. For heaven's sake, you and I should not get lost in the labyrinth of thought. I, me, my, what I was, where I fell, where I rose, how I can rise, how I can become famous, how I can be powerful, how I can teach people a lesson, blah, 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 blah. That is the working of thought. That is the conditioning. That is social influence. That is influence of organized religion, organized political systems, organized nations, so many things organized by human beings will make us lose our intelligence. For the moment something is organized as though there is a set pattern for life, really life defies any patterns. That doesn't mean that you go from one to its opposite. Unfortunately, in today's world, there are some who hold on to organizations. While that is admittedly a mistake, there are some others who are so bent upon destroying organizations, neither by embracing organization nor by destroying for destroying sake. Institutions and organizations, you would do good to anybody. Rather, do not cling to organization, but do not go about things in a destructive manner. Can you operate from certain intelligence, which is not a material process? Intelligence is not material. Thought is material. Thought is a material process. When the material process, that is thought, he is informed, he is led, he is guided. Let me conclude by making a reference to the Gayatri Mantra on our soil. They talk about something that prompts thoughts, that guides thoughts, that gives direction to thought. We meditate on that light which gives direction to thought, is the meaning of Gayatri Mantra. Friends, in this manner, it's very thought provoking. It's something there we need to ponder. We need to think on these things where thought belongs and where that light, that intelligence belongs. What is the function of these two need to be clear to us, not by memorizing a passage from any book, including Krishnamurti's books, not by memorizing and chanting some Sanskrit mantra somewhere. It is not through memorizing anything, being scholars in some philosophical subject, but it is by slowing down, not for the sake of slowing down, but we slow down out of an insight. We see that I have become mechanical. So we slow down to examine my own behavior. And in observing my behavior, the mechanicalness cannot remain anymore, for I see where there is just following something, just imitating something, and so on. It is in this way that we appreciate the statement, thought is a material process. I pause here with thanks to all of you for patient hearing from your side. Namaste.
Thank you very much, sir. Harshad sir, would you please like to say something?
Yes. Are you able to hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji. It is very, very fluent, your thinking. Very effortlessly, you have shown the difference between material process and intelligence. I like to say something that what we know about the universe or the human brain is very, very little. Like universe is made of 100 billion galaxies, and in each galaxy there are 100 billion stars, and there is a space between the galaxies and stars, and it is a very, very vast universe, and our Earth is a very, very tiny planet. And similarly, there is a universe within us, and our human brain is also made of 100 billion neurons or the brain cells, and they are interconnected with each other. And whenever we do any activity like thinking or speaking or even seeing something, these neurons, they fire and they produce neurochemicals, and they pass the information through electric current from neuron to neuron. So our thinking is made up of all these chemicals, neurotransmitters, and electric activity. They are involved. And what the scientists do is that they investigate the activity of the neurons, but I do not think that the scientists know from where the thought is arising. What the scientist knows is only the effect of thinking. So it seems that thought is not generated within the brain, but maybe it is coming from outside. And we don't know suddenly, like my own experience is when I get up early in the morning and my mind is very quiet, and suddenly a song, very old song comes, which I am not trying to remember, but that song is coming, and I can observe that some song is repeating in my mind, and I'm not doing anything, but it is happening. So it is said that there are about 70,000 to 80,000 thoughts happening within our brain, but we are aware of very, very few of those thoughts. And our brain, even we don't know our brain fully, only 5 or 10% of the brain we know a little bit, and that only superficially what the instruments are telling us. And to this day, if the scientist looks at the neuron activity from that, they cannot reconstruct the thought which is producing this activity. So the only way, if we want to understand something which we call the mind, then science is not useful, I feel, because science only deals with matter, and with matter, it tries to understand other matter. But our thinking, the source, which is in the mind and which is somewhere in the memory and the intellect and ego and so many things involved in thinking. And there is something beyond thinking which we are not awakened to. We only, according to the evolution, life was not created by us. And how life came, the simple life due to formation of chemicals, and how life came, simple life, and then millions of years of evolution, and then human beings came, and then our brain became little bigger, and we invented language, and that language is involved in thinking, because what we call thinking is the verbalization of memory. These memories which are stored due to experience, knowledge, and we also don't know where these memories are stored. But when these memories, with the help of a language, it comes in the form of sentences which we call thinking, and that thinking dominates all our activity. And so there is something hidden under the dense layers of thinking and feeling, which we can call choiceless awareness or intelligence, which has, which has not awakened in most human beings, though we use the word awareness and intelligence, but that intelligence is something different than thinking. And that is hidden under the dense layers of thinking and feeling. And when this thinking slows down as Swamiji talked about, slowing down due to meditation and really try to look inside what is happening, then the mind slows down, and then there is a gap between thoughts. And in that gap between thoughts, this intelligence which is suppressed, hidden under, it comes up through the gap, and then it looks at the thinking from top. So this intelligence, which is not thinking, can look at thinking and feeling very, very clearly. And then the problems which are arising from thinking, the sense of self or I or me, and then me wants to change thought, and there is a duality, and there is a desire, fear. All these problems arise from thinking, unobserved thinking. But when intelligence or awareness is awakened, which is not a material process, then it can affect the material process. So intelligence can affect thinking process, and even there is a possibility of changing even the structure of the brain cells, what Krishnaji calls a mutation of the brain cells. It means that when such a thing happens in the brain of a human being begins to look at everything as if looking fresh, as if for the first time. And such a brain, which is a new brain, which Krishnaji wanted to awaken in human beings, in students and teachers, a new brain which can look at everything, even like trees and mountains and human beings, without thinking. And in that, when there is no thinking, there is no thinker, no self. And in that state of pure awareness, one feels some real beauty, a real love which exists. It begins to come in our life. And then we are no longer bound by attachments to people, to property, even to ideas, because ideas are nothing but thinking. Frozen thinking is called ideas. And that ideology is creating many, many problems, conflict in the name of religion, nationality, and this me being different than you. All that arises in the absence of intelligence, which can look at what the thinking is doing. And when such a thing happens, even a simple thing like the flight of a bird, or how an insect moves on the ground, or how a leaf dancing in the wind, everything becomes very, very interesting to observe without thinking. And that is what Krishnaji wanted, uh, a non-material way of looking at outside as well as inside. So Krishnaji has discussed, yes, and one thing I would like to say, this mind is not the product of the brain. our brain is just an instrument and the mind is using the brain to do certain things. And people, many mystics like Raman Maharshi or Ramakrishna or even Krishnamurti and Buddha, they have experienced as if looking at their own self from outside. Like there is one experience of Raman Maharshi when he saw himself, his body dying. It's not a psychological, but the physical death of the body and the color of the body also changing. And Raman Maharshi saw that his friend was crying and he thought that Raman Maharshi has died. But after some time, there was electric impulse in the body of Raman Maharshi and he came back to life again. So such mystical experiences even Krishnaji had, it indicates that there is something, that mind is not only in the brain. Even our thought can move like a wave and our brain can work like a transmitter and receiver of a radio or television signal. And so our brain has this capacity to transmit thoughts and receive thoughts. So this is a mystery which science cannot investigate, because science can investigate only matter, and only the mind, the pure mind, can investigate how thinking works clearly. So I have said enough things. Now we have a dialogue, we have questions, comments, and Swamiji will answer questions, or if question is directed to me, I will answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You can raise the hand and ask or comment, whatever you like. Please raise hand first. Rama Rao, please unmute and say.
Sir, after hearing this talk, uh, it is coming like that. Please kindly either correct or something, throw some light on like that. You see, this manifestation, the physical organ, just like as an instrument, something is behind, is working on that. So we do not have any means like this instrument does not have any. This instrument is only operator of something else. So is it something like that? All our means like enlightened souls say that surrender yourself. Thank you.
May I answer that?
Yes.
This expression, surrender to some higher power, has been in use for centuries. Surrender, Sharanagati, and so on. Now, that is a certain language used by certain mystics or whoever. In the light of the teachings that we are studying, in the light of the teachings that we are deliberating upon, that surrender is nothing else than our seeing clearly how thought is limited. how the intelligence of this I, me, and my, the intelligence that expresses through the self is very limited. We see our helpless. We let go. We let go of our faith or our trust in this ordinary human intelligence. So that letting go, a kind of renunciation, is surrender. We admit that it is like quicksand. You know what is a quicksand? That's the English word for what they call in Hindi daldal. There are some places where you are already sinking, you've gone 2 feet down, and the situation is so dangerous. Any attempt to get out of there would only take you further down by another foot. So best thing is don't move. In quicksand, don't move because any movement will take you further down. You cry for help. Anybody, please help me. Hopefully, luckily, let's say somebody comes along and they can pull you out of the daldal or quicksand. Thought is like quicksand. More and more we get into it, we get more stuck. Therefore, surrender is a very beautiful process whereby we actually we no more try from the point of view of the self because the self is quicksand. So what you said, Rama Rao, is so true, but from a Jnana Yoga point of view, the surrender has this meaning. Letting go of our belief that we can solve problems, arriving at certain silence, and discovering that a new intelligence rises in that silence. In order to welcome that new intelligence, I think Harshad ji mentioned some word, new brain or new mind. In order to welcome, open the door to that new mind. So let me conclude my answer. Letting go of our old ways and being open to some new insights is surrender.
Prasad Mulupuri.
Prasad, yeah.
Please unmute and ask.
Sir, Swamiji has explained very clearly that thought is Maya and self is Maya and time is Maya. But why do we call thought a material process? I think it is simply because thought has its origins in our memory. And memory has its foundation in our experience. Without experience, there is no memory. So thought and knowledge, they are all originating from memory or experience. So it is not independent. Thought has no independence. It is not an independent phenomenon. So, Krishnaji has said it is stored in our memory. Memory is stored in our brain cells. Brain cells are matter, and whatever is stored in those brain cells, which is memory, that is also matter. And anything that originates from that being thought, that is also matter. So, when all these tricks of the mind, like surrender to God or a higher force, all the such tricks of the mind, they are all thought. So, Krishnaji has said, I think, to me, he has explored something above thought, beyond thought. That is silence. Only through silence, your self, which is like an octopus, its tentacles are withdrawn. So, how do you find silence? Anything that comes through silence, that may be beyond thought. That may be non-material. Not immaterial, it may be non-material. So, I think, sir, all effort, any movement of the brain is only material. That is only thought. When I visualize God as a very spiritual force or whatever, all such, anything coming from the brain has its origin in your past experience, your conditioning, your past. You have heard somewhere, you have learned from somebody, you have studied some book. So, these are all tricks of the mind. Let us get out of those tricks and try to see silence. Silence through the operation of your senses. When your senses are fully active, you observe the cloud, the tree, things like that. And your quoting scriptures, etc., is all only scholarship, is only a material process. Sir, going beyond thought is the only thing which Krishnaji has given us to me. Thank you, sir.
Dinesh Waghmare, please unmute and say.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yes, yes.
My question to Harshad sir and Swamiji, we say that thought is a material process. But thought also behaves many times autonomously or mechanically, as Harshad sir said that a song automatically starts and moves in the mind. So at that time, what happens? Is it, and we say that intelligence is different or it is a transcendental state or something of that sort. So when this thought is behaving autonomously or mechanically, at that time there is no intelligence or a negative intelligence is coming into picture or what?
Okay. May I answer that?
Please
Yes, sir.
do.
Yes. It is like if you are in an empty room and the door is open and somebody enters through the door, you know that somebody, if your eyes are open, you know that somebody has entered. So similarly, when a person is in the state of that emptiness, having no thoughts, if a thought enters, one can see that a thought has entered. So, uh, to observe thoughts clearly, one needs that intelligence or choiceless awareness or silence in that whatever is coming can be seen, and then it doesn't create more problems. But if that awareness, intelligence is not there, then the thought will go round and round, creating more and more problems. So this is something one has to really experiment with it. And it requires freedom or energy to look inward and look at clearly what is happening within us. And it requires curiosity, intensity, all that. So that is why Krishnaji says freedom is at the beginning. And that is our problem, that we are so much occupied with thinking that we are going round and round and not coming up from that plane and observing thinking. So how that happens, that a person can come out, that insight, and that insight, it can happen, but one cannot premeditate it. One cannot decide that I will have insight. But when there is all this curiosity, intensity, energy, all are there, then some insight may come, and then we really see that there is something new has happened in our life. So one has to feel it for oneself, because it cannot be described. Whatever we describing is only through words, and this verbal understanding, it cannot lead us to non-verbal experimenting. Okay, finish.
Sir, my question was about the movement of thought. How a material process, if we say, we call it a material process, how it can work on its own without any intelligence or without any force, prime force. We see in the world also, material cannot move itself. It has to be a force and plus direction given to it, then only it moves.
Yes. So what is it that making the earth go around the sun? We don't know.
So it's a mysterious
What is
process.
it that makes us? We don't know what is making thinking operate. It may be something, the memory which are stored, they get ignited when we see something outside, or it may happen by itself. It's a mystery, but important thing is to look at it and not trying to find answers, because answers will not make much sense.
So you mean to say it cannot be labeled as a material process?
Which one?
Thinking.
Thought process is, yeah, it is going from neuron to neuron, electrochemical process. It's a material process, but the cause of it is something different.
So prime mover is different.
Yeah, yes.
What Swamiji has to say on this?
I wish to add that thought derives energy either way, whether it is making mistakes or behaving well. So when thought is behaving well, the intelligence being having the upper hand. When we have some glimpses of uh, you know glimpses of order, but it takes a back seat. Thought as though does not draws energy and then misuses the energy. That is, to make matters simple, let me give an example. Left to itself, thought, which is a conditioned energy, would see somebody who is very rich and would say, hey, I also want to be rich. This is, mechanical behavior. Whereas when thought is brought in the illumination of intelligence, there is a seeing that happens. On one hand, there is this seeing that I don't need wealth to be happy. On the other, as Harshadji narrated beautifully in an earlier answer of his, a moving cloud, a flying bird, a little flower that has bloomed, etc., will give us so much happiness. That means the thought, which is now informed by intelligence, sheds or lets go of its foolishness. It was great foolishness on the part of thought to believe very strongly sometimes, as it happens in life, that unless I become very rich, my life is such a failure, isn't it? Humanity, gets into some conclusions, which is what we call the material process. Therefore, the movement of thought, once it is brought into the light of intelligence, into certain watchfulness, sheds, leaves foolish ways, and then there is happiness. This is what I may add.
It means a division is already created. Means thought has got its own negative intelligence.
Thought has its own negative intelligence. This is like, there is a famous story. Uh, what was his name? The founder of Parsi religion. What was his name?
Zarathustra.
Founder of
Zarathustra.
Zarathustra. Yeah.
Yes.
Zarathustra goes to a king, and the king has a question to him. You say God is everything, but why is there so much evil? You know. So Zarathustra says, get me a long stick. The servants run and get a stick. A certain, those days, good old days, no electricity, certain light because of burning fire was on one side of the room. Zarathustra just holds that stick and says to the king, what do you see here? The stick. The stick alone is, right? Yes. But there is also a shadow. Would you say there are two things in this room? The stick and the shadow? The king says, well, really there is only the stick. The shadow is just a manner of, saying. Like that, Zarathustra says, all evil, all sorrow, all unhappiness is like the shadow. When you know God, there will be no sorrow. He gives his traditional explanation. That connects so well with what you have just now said, that thought, does it have its own power, its own capacity, its own ability to mess up things? Not really. But in darkness, in ignorance, in avidya, as we call, it seems to have. It can frighten us sometimes. But if we notice properly, oh, this is only a shadow, we would laugh. So, this awakening of intelligence is nothing but our being able to see, and in the context of seeing, thought behaves. So, all the power that thought had was just like a dream, not real.
Shrikant Marathe.
I
Shrikant
would like
Marathe,
to,
please
yeah,
unmute and ask. Shrikant
yeah,
Marathe.
yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes,
can hear
yes.
you.
I would like to respond to the point raised by Mr. Dinesh Waghmare, that is there any energy to the thought? What is that energy? So we must consider that there are some properties of matter like inertia. The thing which is moving will keep itself in the state of motion unless it is stopped by some other force. So a thought is like something is in motion. It is like inertia. So in that sense, it is a matter. It has got that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Anybody else wanted to ask or comment? Kamlesh Modak, please unmute and say.
Sir, Harshad sir,
Yeah,
there is one question from me, which is
okay.
the energy which is propelling the thought itself.
Mm.
You understood my question, sir? I am audible?
Yeah, yes. What is it that makes the thought move? That is
Yes, sir.
what energy, yeah? Yeah.
What energy is there in the cell which propels the thought?
Hmm. It is a good question. I will have to observe. And if I find the answer, then I will come back to you. But what I like to say is that from this thinking arises the sense of I or me. And once that I self arises, it wants to change thinking. So there is a duality between thinker and thought. And all our problems of fear, anger, jealousy, they arise out of this duality. And to verify this, one has to be extremely alert and look at the beginning of a thought. And in that case, the thinking can even stop, as I felt and I feel anytime I can stop thinking. And yes, so there is this energy of friction between the two. That is a waste of energy. But there is a pure energy of intelligence which can eliminate this wasteful energy by looking clearly. That is what I can say, that when there is intelligence or awareness or choiceless awareness or perception, whatever word you use, then thinking moves in a proper way without creating this sense of I or me. And thinking moves very beautifully. But without that awareness or intelligence, thinking goes round and round. It is like Swamiji says, thinking is like sinking in the mud. So when you are sinking in thinking and you try to come out, you sink more. So one has to see it through insight, and then there is no more thinking is not an enemy, as Krishnaji says, thinking creates the problem. No, thinking creates problem only when there is no intelligence. Otherwise, thinking is very, very useful. Okay, I have finished. Yeah.
Chidanandji, would you please like to comment on it?
Swamiji. Okay, maybe somebody else wants to ask question.
Okay.
Lakshmi Mandaleeka.
Lakshmi.
I'm not asking a question. Now, whatever Harshad Parekh he said is very right. And I want to appreciate Chidanandji Swamiji for his discovery that what is submission, he said with his experience, you see, we should not be conditioned with anything, and he is not conditioned with anything, and he said very nicely, that is, in that there is no thought. That I liked it very much, and immediately I could not say. And now whatever Harshad Parekh said is right, because in conflict only, the thought, energy means in movement only. When there is no movement, there is no energy. When there is movement only, the energy comes to the thought. So any energy is one energy only, but when the thought is in movement, then that energy always conflict, and then real energy loss. And then, as he said, when intelligence uses thought, intelligence will use the thought as an instrument, then it is right. But thought itself functions with the me, then only there is conflict and all energy loss. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Pradeep ji, well within time you are there. So please speak.
Thank you. Thank you. I will talk about what I see around me, what I see, what is, rather than discussing what he said and what he meant and what I understood. So, matter may not have intelligence as we conceive it, but most of us with intelligence are more after matter because it doesn't react as dramatically as living, moving beings. But to me, even so-called matter possesses a different type of intelligence, some sort of consciousness. Our food, a combination of 5 elements, nourishes our vitality, intellect, and intelligence. Man is playing with matter much more than ever. Intelligence must be a very hard, very shy, that it requires to be awakened. It may be taken as intelligence because usually when something desirable to someone, then we call it intelligence, or to a number of people, or to say most of the people. Otherwise, intellect works beautifully. The same act may be taken as intelligence by someone and ignorance by the other. It depends on location, situation, and so many things. So this is something like discussing about objectivity, object and subject. With the object, now this is a beautiful thing, the memory, object within a subject, discussing about the importance of something within me only. You see, I thought everything, matter. This is matter. You see, but the same thing is talking, dividing into two, matter and some non-matter, or say spiritual, or some different wavelength. So this is where it leads to, why we have picked up this topic, and how it has, the real message is what? Ultimately, what is the message? After listening to everything different people have as knowledge, giving explanations to what matter or what is the matter rather. So what is the message? How does it help? Presently, we are surrounded by everything, you know, huge, big wars are around, everything is around, life has become difficult, everything is around. As such, does it make a drop, a contribution that will help individually, or collectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pradeep ji. Sir, any comment?
Yes, maybe I can comment.
Yeah.
Like when we read about the war and many problems which are going on, small wars within the family, in the country, between political parties, religion, all that. If we get affected by all that, then we will not have energy to look at ourselves where the problems are really arising. The problems are arising within us when we see something. So a question comes, is it possible that when I see that something is going on there in society, can I not be affected? Can I really look and clearly what is behind these problems, and whether can I be free from the problems which I create out of uh, lack of intelligence. So when our attention is directed within us to look at the beginning of a thought, then there is a possibility of something new happening in our life. And then we can deal with the problem of the world. We can do really something. But if we are confused within us, we add to the confusion in the world. So as Krishnaji says, if you want to go very far, you have to start from what is near, and your own self is very near. So first, let us find clarity within us, and then we will not be disturbed by what is happening in the world, but we can do something about that. Otherwise, it will be like the blind leading the blind. And that is the way the world goes on. Politicians who desire a lot of power, they have ambition, they are creating, rich people want to become richer, and it goes on like that. And it will probably go on like that. But for people who are deeply interested in looking clearly, they will have to start the journey within themselves and find some clarity. And I feel that there is a treasure buried within us, but there is a dense layers of thinking and feeling, and we live only in that layer of thinking and feeling. So this treasure remains buried, but some people like Mirabai or Kabir and many people, they have been able to touch that treasure buried within themselves, because it is not easy. One needs real courage to look at what is, you said, that to look at what is clearly, one needs the freedom to look. So again, how much passionate one is to look without fear, without escaping. And because it is very easy to talk about the world and escape from ourselves. And some people go into social work, some go into politics, some go join religion or organization. I think they are all escape from oneself. So a person who has the time and energy and aloneness, not frightened of being alone, can look from where do the problems arise. Okay, I finish. Yes.
Everybody has
Few comments on that,
because
please.
time is left only 5 minutes. So Prasad sir, please be brief. Anand sir, please be brief. And third one is also to be a brief, because 1 minute or 2 minutes will be given to you only.
1 minute, can you give me?
Yeah, why not? You are welcome, because you are asking earlier. Earlier, you will be given 5 minutes more.
Because when we thinking is a later phenomenon. First is seeing and looking, as we see things. Now, where is that? We have been emphasizing on being sensitive, being compassionate, having a feeling for fellow feeling. All those things automatically seeing brings all these things in a gush to all of us. Thinking is a little phenomenon, but seeing, should we see it or should we go on discussing? I don't think anybody, what I saw, no, others have also seen it, but we are discussing some past statement by someone, and what does it mean in the present moment. So we have to be careful about these things, because what we see, sensitivity, compassion, and all those things simultaneously, they will come as a living being. These things automatically come.
Can I ask the last question?
Sir, no, please, Waghmare, let others ask. Prasad is first and then Anand, sir. And then there will be time for you. Sorry.
Okay.
Sir, only half a minute.
Yeah, welcome.
What is the energy for thought? Sir, thought energy is the same. The same energy with which I am moving my hand, that energy is also taking the shape of thought. Energy is all right. So thought also is all right in its own domain. But when it is in certain other aspects, it becomes a destructive. That is about energy, sir. And then Pramodji has said, what is the use of our discussion? Has it any role? I think it has a role, sir. The purpose of this discussion is to see the limitations of thought. And when you see the limitations of thought, you are not caught in the cobwebs around you. You are free from most prejudices and things like that. That's all, sir. Thank you.
Anand, please be brief. Anand, sir.
Yes, sir. I mean, yeah. I mean, when we say thought is material, I mean, the brain is material, and therefore thought has to be it's a material process. I mean, we had a lot of discussion on it. I mean, I don't think we require one whole hour on that. The other things are when you talk about sensitive, to see, to look, one has to be sensitive. Are we sensitive human beings is the question, sir. Like somebody said, the rich man, I mean, he does this and that, you're blaming somebody else. But how do I understand you and I are responsible for what is happening on this planet? Well, if there is poverty on the planet, it's you and me who are responsible. We are selfish, we are greedy, we are all that, which is the cause for what is happening out there. So trying to say that somebody else is responsible, I disown myself. But to understand, when I say sensitive, when I talk about freedom also, it's only when I'm sensitive that there can be freedom. Without being sensitive, there cannot be freedom. One has to understand, when we say one has to be free to look, one has to be sensitive to see what's happening out there. If I know that something is going to happen to me, that I'm going to be dead if I don't take an action, I am very serious. But I'm not serious in my life. What is happening out there, I'm not worried. I'm in comfort zone. I don't want to come out of the comfort zone. So only when I'm sensitive, I see things, and then out of that perception, or sensitive, which is again love, compassion, and intelligence. There's an action out of that. But I'm an insensitive human being. What is happening out there, it doesn't bother me. I may just sit here, I mean, have all kinds of discussions, but I need to understand that unless one observes that one is insensitive, it is going to be a huge challenge for any one of us. Like it's only then you'll have some clarity. Out of the clarity, there's an action. Over, sir.
Thank you very much. Kamlesh Modak, please end it as it is already 7:31.
Sir, Waghmare ji has to say something.
No, sir. No,
I
sir.
want
It
to
is already being said. 7:31 is there. So please end it. Please end it.
So we
Please.
we talk of freedom, but we don't have freedom.
Time.
You mean to
Next
say?
time. Next time you will be given more time. Okay.
So
Thank
thought
you.
is playing important role, huh?
No, sir. No, sir. If you mind, it matters. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks all for participating.
Okay. Thank you all participants.
Thanks to
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.